Yes, yes, indeed. Y'all know what it is. The Reentry Connect podcast. I'm your host, Keenan Hudson. Yeah, another special guest. Y'all know how we do it. We don't just talk about it, we be about it. So guess what, y'all? Another nice little story here, man. It's really good because it's a good topic. A very catchy title here. It says, they thank me for my service and destroy me with theirs. Like, so that's a long, that's a nice thing, to talk about. Sometimes we look at being in prison or going away for some time as if it doesn't do anything to you. Here it is. We have a veteran right here. A vet. That had traumas. In life and how things really um, shaped him in a way for the good and for the bad in a way. But he gonna more so tell his story than me. But without further ado, my brother Tony Cooper, appreciate you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's good, man? Everything's. I'm Tony. I live in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and I go to school up here. I'm studying human services and restorative justice. So I have a really deep interest in affecting a lot of the societal problems that we have, and I try to keep it within the bubble of my county. And the reason I do that is in the military, we would segment like that. We would make something very good, and then that becomes contagious. So I'm trying to work on that scale right now, and maybe push the envelope someday and get wider.
Cool. So so let me jump right into it. So we know we both are in like the reentry field, and I know I've seen you at different conferences and things like that, and we spoke, and a lot of people a lot of times they talk about things that they don't have out here in the world, the things that they need and the things that they struggle with. And one of the things a lot of people, they don't tend to touch on is that mental challenge. You know, when you went into service, when you went into war, did you develop or was diagnosed with the what's the diagnosis you were diagnosed with?
PTSD, post traumatic
PTSD,
stress.
excuse me. Yeah, post traumatic stress disorder. So once you had that coming from the service, how did that have an effect on you with landing back in or landing into prison?
It almost felt like I was going back to the trauma again.
Mm.
Like it was.
So that trauma, how did it form? How did it form when you were in the service?
Well, mostly from I freak out over noises, loud noises, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
My PTSD is more like the fainting goat. It's probably more funny than it is. For me, I'm more embarrassed than anything when it happens. I'll freeze and I'll just kind of lose control of my muscles and I'll just kind of fall over. We watch videos, laughing at fainting goats and all that kind of stuff on, YouTube or whatever. But I do that for real. I can do that for real if I'm frightened just the other way. So yeah,
got you sound like you need some WD-40 over there.
Man. This chair is no good, man. This chair.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I'm joking with you. But yeah, but tell us a little bit, like, how did that affect, like, when you did land in prison, and you don't have to go into detail of what the situation was, but how did it have that mental effect on you? Like, how was it like dismissed? Because you came up with like a good title here, like you say, they thank me for my service, but then they destroy me with theirs. How did they destroy you with their services? Like, what happened?
It all started back with my first contact with police. And when I was having that contact with police, it just exhibited characteristics that were not what you would expect from a law enforcement officer. And of course, I didn't know how to get body footage or cam footage, and they may have not even had them at the time. but just the way they treated me, and I was trying to explain that I had a mental health issue and that there was something that was really, really upsetting me. And when I tried to bring that to their attention, the police officer's reply was, if you don't knock this shit off, they're just going to drag you through the system. And I couldn't absorb that, right? And I felt at that time like I was safer in Baghdad than I was in my own backyard.
Wow. Wow.
And that hit me. That hit me hard. Like that, just completely dismissing it. So then you get through things like the court system, and they talk about having a veterans court. But whenever I asked about it, the public defender was like, "No, they're not doing that for you."
Wow.
It was that kind of stuff was going on, and none of that's normal. None of that's normal. That's not, none of that. But all the way into like the prison, just the intake process. Oh my word. Just the intake process. Going through that and watching them document things or not document things, how they document it. If they write down PTSD right on there, and I say that, hey, I'm taking these drugs. I'm used to taking these drugs, but I take medical marijuana at this time. Working with my doctor, they'd have no idea about that background or usage because they never would get my records or take my word for that or anything. They wouldn't. So what ended up happening is I spent 3 months in there without any medication at all. And that right there will be forever etched in my soul, that 3 months, because I had never felt that bad.
Wow.
I was like trapped in my own body. Like I was just like anxiety, depression, just like going all over the place and just breaking down. And, and I was like, whoa, I ain't felt like this because I've always been medicated.
Oh, wow. So you telling me, so having like those withdrawals, were they like kind of like having you have thoughts of like suicide, things like that?
No.
Oh, never suicide.
No.
Okay, never thoughts of harming anybody, contemplating. It wasn't anything.
I was just trying to get out of my own body, man. It was rough.
Wow. So how did you cope with those things? Like, how did you look past that and make it out of it?
You find an OG in there. You find an OG in prison. You find an old head, or my case, I found a young bull. I'm a little older. I'm 40. I was 48 at the time, 49, something like that. 48, and I found a guy that was there. It was 45, who had been in and out a couple times, but he kind of took me under his wing. My cellie. So, my cellie kind of helped. And reading a couple books that were really about strength and resilience and that type of thing. Whether it be T.D. Jakes' daughter wrote a book about, the victory and that kind of thing, and read that kind of stuff. And I was reading a couple different books.
So did you think that once you got out, after being away from the medication and things that you were on, did you know that eventually that you will return back and be prescribed that medication once again once you were released, or were you able to do without it after that?
Well, I was in for 7 months.
Okay.
So it took after month 3, then I finally got my medication. And then that's when I started feeling good. I was fine. Everything was normal, and I got the same prescription that, I told them at intake. I ended up with the same prescription that I told them at intake. Now, whenever I went to see the psych doc, to help prescribe the medication, he was a veteran himself. And I told him I had been in there 3 months without my meds. And he just his chair was creakier than mine. I mean, he was like he couldn't believe what he was hearing, and I'm like, I've been in here 3 months, and and so he just prescribed me exactly what I told him that I needed, which was exactly what I had been prescribed with the Veterans Affairs prior to ramping down to the medical marijuana.
Wow!
But get that on an intake form. They take, if you tell them you have a medical marijuana card, even though it's it's considered medication here in the Commonwealth, they will write it under street drugs. They'll just write marijuana under street drugs.
It's something else. And we have a quick comment here. I believe I pronounced her name right, Miss Caitlin. It says, heartbreaking how our system is so full of discrimination against those with mental health, and sadly it looks things will only be getting worse. And that's totally true. People, they disregard and look down upon that often, and a lot of times some people battle without you even knowing. Sometimes they say, how does depression look? Depression looks like, you have a smile on your face thinking everything is all well, but inside things are not right. You know what I mean? But and it is sad because people don't care about other people's feelings anymore. Don't care about what a person is really going through. But then on the flip side, you do have people that play that game, just to get what they want. So it becomes a form of manipulation. So sometimes, like you say, but having to be evaluated and to be diagnosed, like you were just saying,
yeah,
that you had paperwork that could back you up to show like, yo, listen, I'm going through something. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I need to be medicated because it's not right. Like I know some people that were like that as well. Like you said, couldn't stand the loud noises, and some medications kept them calm. But if they didn't get it, which sometimes prison guards or whatever may not allow them to get their medication because of whatever odd reason. And a lot of times they'll have episodes. And those episodes lead to the outlash. It leads to them wanting to throw feces or, or urine on somebody or on the guards and things like that. So that's why it's very, very important to pay attention to things like that. Because again, some people commit suicide. You know what I mean? I've seen some people do that as well, like literally, and they'll be about to go home like within about 5 months. But couldn't stand, what was coming before them on the outside. And they knew they wasn't going to have, the things that they had access to within the prison walls of when they got out and people committed suicide. It's sad. But tell me now, so when you came, I'm sorry, you wanted to continue? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry about the chair. The chair's gone.
Oh no, yeah, you good. Yeah, you good. It's all right. Bring y'all good. So tell me, what type of advice can you give to some individuals that may be going through with the post-traumatic stress disorder, things like that, or even battling, mentally on a daily basis in a place like that? Like what type of advice or cope mechanisms could you give?
Well, I would like to say stay busy working on something. Like if you're, there was one guy that had a really great coping mechanism, which was he would color trucks, like the coloring books, and he would take like this extra careful job, that kind of thing. But for me, it was I was in the law library. I wasn't exercising any kind of self-care when I was in there.
Not at all. Why you say that?
Because I wasn't out throwing the bean bags. I wasn't doing any of that. I was in the law library on the tablet. That's where I was. I was writing things down. I was learning things. I was reading this docket, reading that docket, understanding the law, because I knew when I came out, there was going to be nothing but boxing. And I needed to be prepared for that. I had to be prepared for that.
Wow.
So that I couldn't find myself in a corner where I couldn't get out of it. or not understanding the mechanisms of how things work in a prison plant. But understanding how some of that stuff is supposed to work is framed out in law. So you're able to understand how it's supposed to go, and then you take a look around while you're inside reading the law library, like, no, that's not how that works.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of times.
I started blueprinting like that from the inside out. So that when I get on the outside, I have the blueprint from the inside. If you
gotcha. So you learn so in multiple ways. So you learn how to litigate. So a lot of court actions, things. Not just like you say, not just from your surroundings within prison, but you understood the judicial system, and understanding the courts and the law and things like that. So you educated yourself during that time as well.
Yes. Now, to be completely, I'm not a lawyer, that's for sure. But I'm learning about the processes more. Especially after I go to court, I'll come out kicking myself in the butt thinking, okay, that's what I did wrong there. Don't do that again. And I'm learning from that. And it's, sooner or later, I'm going to be immune. I'm going to be able to work that, system the way I need to be successful. And then use that as a lever for change, for sure.
That's cool. And now nowadays, like, what are you doing now? I know you spoke earlier, you mentioned things like college and, with the conferences and stuff like that, like I said, we may see each other at. Like, what are you doing now that's helping you succeed out here in the world?
Well, I recently had been offered a job working as a direct professional, helping people navigate barriers in the community, and I really, I get anxiety over taking work and doing work like that because I don't. If it's a computer job, because I have a background in IT and all that crazy stuff, that's a no-brainer for me. I walk in, but this is new for me. This is me putting different types of skills that maybe I put together as a leader in the military, but it's different. So I have to. I do have some anxiety over it for sure. But yeah, having the opportunity to sit down for an interview and get an offer to job that's awesome. That's good. Awesome. Yeah, that's good. I do some volunteer work with an organization that's local here. They're centered on mental health. So if they have like events and things like that, I'll go help set up the table, get familiar with the materials, and that's what's up. Anytime they would ask me to do something, I would definitely be there to help out, because spreading the good word about mental health is it's something we need to be doing constantly. Our
that's
neighbors,
good that you say,
and everybody. It's a constant thing.
Yeah, not only do you say that that you have a job, but you also don't mind volunteering your services as well. And that's a good thing, because sometimes people understand everything doesn't have to come with a cost. Everything doesn't have to come with the cost of being paid or compensated. I'm telling you, so many times, in my life where, like, I've sacrificed a lot, helping people do certain things, and, didn't look for a dime, which I knew I could have been compensated or looked for it in return, but that wasn't my heart. But sometimes you do gotta, sacrifice some things, man. And I'm telling you, you reap what you sow. The things you put in other terms, whatever you put into life, it comes back to you. You know what I mean? So if you're gonna plant good seed, best believe that your harvest is gonna be plentiful. But you just gotta constantly keep going. Don't faint not. It's one of those things. Faint not. And you're gonna reap it. So, That's why, again, people may think and say, well, oh, you've been blessed, you've been this and the third, but people may not see or may not have seen some of the struggles you've been through. You know what I mean? They may not have seen the traumas you've been through in the service. You know what I'm saying? But they do see the good heart that you have now out here helping people. You know, you got your job. You have
And all
a good mindset.
fairness, all that stuff in the military was my intention for them to never see it or never experience it.
That's deep. And I tell you, but yeah, you got to definitely keep up that good work. Constantly, build people up that surround you. You know, people may be in your shoes, like you said. You might see some younger people. You know, because a lot of times you don't have to go to the military just to have post traumatic stress disorder or depression. You know what I mean, or many type of things. You know, things go on in our own households. You know, where they're growing up at. You know, where it could put them through some mental stress. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, going along with like the what you were talking about earlier, like the support systems. Support systems are everything. You got to have your friends. You have to have your people that are checking in on you. And I know, like, kind of when I go to the college, I have that. I got that. I'm surrounded by that.
Yeah.
And man, it's like awesome. It's freaking awesome. And so I'm finding a lot more value in having them relationships outside of the college bubble with other different people or whatever. So it kind of opens that back up because I experienced trauma again and I go right back into my shell. You know what I'm saying? Like, like when I come out of the military, I was right in the shell, man. And until I got into prison, I'm like, as long as I'm in my shell, nobody's listening to me. Nobody's listening to me. So, you know, going to a boardroom for the first time and speaking in public because I have something to say, I have to get through that barrier of not only wanting to speak in public. So, so I'm building up that skill set again because I used to be able to just blah in front of hundreds of people, no problem. Yeah, no problem. You know, so
gotcha.
That's something I work with.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you could encourage or give some words of wisdom to people that's in prison right now or somebody that's going through something, what type of words or uplifting quotes would you give them?
I'd say, stay tight, keep pressing. Just remember, I think being honest with yourself is probably the best thing you can do. Is once you're honest with yourself, nothing else outside of you matters. Be honest with yourself. If you know you're good or you know that you have things to change, those are the things that you need to cue in on. Because a lot of times in prisons, they're not going to help you figure that out. You might not meet the mental health professional that's going to sit down and help you figure out the things that are in your way, the barriers and things like that. So I definitely say my old heads out there, keep spreading the knowledge, keep them young bulls, in the loop on learning things and things like that. Cultivate the people within so that whenever they re-enter into society, maybe they pick something up and put it in their toolbox along the way. That's what I would say.
Cool. And let us know, Mr. Tony Cooper, let us know what your name is. How can they find you? What you have on social medias, that is. Let's just go ahead and lay it out for them.
Okay. All right. Well, I have, as you can see on the graphics there, I have the FAFO Media, follow and find out. And, anybody that's going there, some of the musics might have some explicit lyrics and things like that. So that's my disclaimer on that. But I started making songs, and it was like storytelling through instrumentation and using music in order to tell a story. Because I'm not the best at speaking, but I might be able to say something that I might not be able to say openly, or be able to articulate what it is. So I've found quite a few tools to help me with that.
Gotcha.
In addition to that, I have another platform called Like, You Heard, which I picked that up. You hear you heard all in prison all the time, so I kind of picked that up, and so I have a podcast that essentially I've been using to take different topics and disseminate that to the public in maybe a way that they're not going to get from the media. Like maybe what I'm seeing in a boardroom, or what I'm seeing on minutes that's not being talked about in the media, in the news, or in the newspaper, and unpacking that myself and, re-disseminating that back to the public in a way that maybe they can understand, whether it be the right to know law, maybe local fire departments are not getting enough money, which we don't want fire departments not getting enough money. That's just a public safety issue. The budget. If you've ever been to a meeting where the county presents the budget, they don't actually really explain the mechanics about what went up and what went down, who's getting the money and who's not. Call it balanced budget, but if you look, the waves all changed. Everything's different. So I started figuring out how to unpack those things. I started figuring out how it worked, what's going where and why.
Gotcha. Well, we understand, man. We appreciate it, Mr. Tony Cooper. Without further ado, I know our show is coming here to an end now, but we appreciate having you. You sharing your story. You said they thanked you for your service, but then destroyed you with theirs. But I'm glad you're still standing. You're about to get your job. You're out here supporting people. You keep your good spirits up. You constantly keep, like I say, pushing forward. You know what I mean? You already know we connected, so you already know you can reach out. I'm
glad we connected.
Yeah, indeed.
Meeting you was really cool.
Yeah, that's indeed, man. And again, we're gonna be having more shows where it's a host of us up here, and we just gonna chop it down, man. So we're connected. Absolutely. But again, it's your host Keenan Hudson here with the Reentry Connect podcast, and until next time, man, we'll catch y'all later. The brother Universal Soul right here, Universal Cal. He said, "Tell him get a lot of lizard, laugh out loud." That's a brother right there, good brother right there. Can't wait till he come on the show, man. Powerful story, powerful brother, man. Really got a great conscience, man. Conscience, really, man. So, without further ado, peace. Everybody have a good night.